Thank you everyone for being here, and thanks to University of Lincoln for inviting us. My name is Ruchit Purohit. I'm a full-time research associate at the Open University and working on this project full-time. But just to give you a brief background of what empowering design practices is, and then I'll move on to the topic of today's presentation, which is learning from the past. So empowering design practices is a 5-year research project led by Dr. Theodore Zemenopoulos and Dr. Katrina Alexia, and it's a multidisciplinary, plus it has a lot of different stakeholders, so we got a lot of project partners on board. Please visit our website empoweringdesign.net for more information, but I'll give you more information later as well. We've got pamphlets over here, and follow our Twitter feeds as well, because you'll be informed of what we do on a daily or a weekly basis. So what's the context? So what we're trying to do is we got a number of it's approximately 14,500 listed places of worship in England itself, and more within the UK. How do we manage and make a sustainable future for these buildings? So it's about protection of heritage. It's about the faith element of these places of worship, as well as what we are trying to bring in is citizen-led design practices, because we are moving towards climbing up the ladder of participation. So going from the consultation at the phase we are in UK to climbing up and making it more engagement, getting more consensus building. Also, to give you a brief background, my background and Dr. Theo and Katrina's background is in architecture. Both of them have done their PhD in community-led design. I've done my PhD in heritage and participatory planning. So that's where we're coming from. What's the purpose of this project? So it's to explore and evaluate a spectrum of mechanism and strategies. We want to work with people, for people, and so we can empower them to design their own places. Engage congregations. So the focus of this project is only places of worship, but we are also working on different projects for different communities. But this one's more related to places of worship. So we're working with congregations and making wider community come and use these spaces, but how do these two different groups interact? About the historic places, and to address wider and local social needs, and how these spaces, with a lot of them being redundant for a long number of time, can be reused. But what do we get out of it? So we're trying to build capacity within the community and all the stakeholders. So there is more community-led design and empower people in that sense. But at the Open University, we're doing practice and research-based projects. So we'll be coming up with the educational resources online and a training program for professional students and communities. How does that work? So we are working with conservation architects, all sorts of different architects and heritage officers, from English Heritage to the other heritage organizations, and we're working on live projects with students and communities. So from the first, we've almost finished 1 year of the project, and we've done mapping of at least 6 case studies. I'll be presenting 3 today. But what I also want to focus on is we've got 50 cases we're going to be researching on, out of which 15 would be projects who have already undergone transformation. We want to look at places of worship which have done something with their community, developed their, even if it's a simple physical change of bringing in a toilet or a kitchen, but they've done something with the community and brought in some kind of funding, but a big kind of a movement within the people. So they come on more daily basis or weekly basis. But so those kind of projects which are already completed, we go them, we research on them, and we write on it, and we prepare modules. But other 35 cases, we'll be working with them. That is the strand which we call as helping the new projects, or supporting new journeys, because we want other people who are starting now to learn, or kind of to learn from these past projects of what they can do with their communities. The 3 projects I'm presenting is, one is St. Luke's in Oxford. It's a very small church, Anglican, the outskirts of Oxford. The second one is the Sheffield Buddhist Centre. And the third one is St. Martin's Church in Bilborough, Nottingham. Just to give you a brief background, a lot of information, but just to, one of this is Anglican and it's unlisted. So we want to see that heritage is, it's not supposed to be always listed. It's what people feel about their buildings. Sheffield Buddhist Center, which was previously St. Vincent's Presbytery. So it was listed during that time in 70s, but it's recently been bought 10, 15 years ago, and it's been converted into a Buddhist center. So we want to focus on how that change happened. And St. Martin's Church is a Church of England church, a grade 2 star. They've been through a recent 6-year renovation and restoration project and won the recent SPAB award. So how did that transformation occur, and what kind of community activities they did? Again, we try to focus and gather data on all sorts, because it's a very multidisciplinary project, as I said. It's one of the St. Luke's, again, the most poorest and deprived communities in Oxford, has low employment, different ethnic minorities, many single parents and dysfunctional families. You compare it to Sheffield Buddhist Center, which is housing associations, mostly elderly and disabled. St. Martin's Church in Nottingham is again a bit of deprived. So how do you engage with these sort of communities? And that's what we wanted to learn from them. I looked at the last line, which is about the congregations. It's St. Luke's and St. Martin's, the congregation is now reducing. So they wanted a space more for community activities in sense, but also want to grow their congregation. That's one of their back channel aims. Whereas Sheffield Buddhist Center wanted to grow, so they moved from a smaller room and bought a big church, because their congregations keeps on increasing. So how do you manage spaces in terms of architecture, interior design, and faith elements? For the 4 key research questions, and I'll just go through each project now. So what was the key driver of St. Luke's? It says love for people, love for the mission, and that was their vision. So what happened was there was the planning restoration of retaining the building, but bringing in new character since long, but they couldn't get funding or anything. Surprisingly, 3 teenagers applied for a local council funding, and they won the bid, and that's what got the project ongoing. They just got £5,000 grant, but they were forced, I mean the steering committee was forced to sit with these 3 teenagers from the onset to design the space. So they said, we want a community space in our area. We don't have any community space in this area of Oxford. Can we use this church? Can we have a chill out room over there? That's what they called, and they got that £5,000. And since then they sat with the architects and the builders, and they designed the space. And then what followed was a domino effect of getting more funding. What was the key asset? We usually, what we do is we, in terms of research, with one example, if I give you of a past project, first I go and interview one of the key stakeholders. I bring in like the basic data, and then we run a participatory mapping workshop. So where we develop an entire timeline, but we let all the stakeholders come together. It's like a 4-hour workshop. People have food and have fun, but they also say what were the key milestones in the project, what they felt about it, what were key assets in terms of people, resources, emotions they felt. And so we want to engage with them, and so they can bring out all the good qualities of working together, as well as what are the hindrances in working together. So those are the sort of workshops we run. What is the key asset at St. Luke's? It was teamwork, a steering committee with expertise in different areas. What came across was one of the funding people over there from the committee, he has a background in finance, so he's done this kind of work. One of the church wardens is an engineer, and he knows acoustics, and he could design it. So how do you use these local skills, and how do these skills can be transferred from one person to another? But also when the project ends, they're like, what do we do now? We've learned so much in the last 6 years. How do we take it forward? Well, that's what the gap we've identified, and we are trying to publish and help other people. How does the building work? So the design is the addition of a new chill-out room. It's got a nice lounge, a kitchen. They have different arts and crafts, plus baby and toddler kind of workshops. In terms of faith, it's mainly Anglican, of course, but because of the ethnic minority of even the Hungarian Baptist Church has started using it. So they give out the space 3 hours every Sunday to Hungarian Baptists. So we want to see how faith kind of have these, are they clashes or they're not clashes? Do they work together? They don't work together. So those kind of working. What happens in the chill out room? They have music sessions, coffee club, as I said, mother and toddler and youth groups. But who is the community? And that question keeps on coming across in each and every of our workshop. They say we all work together. It's open to multiple users, but the committee has the final say of what happens when. But it's also about the committee saying that we want to open it up to the community. They say the council at times doesn't have a place where they want to announce anything. They use our boards. They run 1-hour community consultations every 3 months. So how is it that a church which would be a secular, non-secular organization used for secular activities, and is that even possible? So that's what we are researching. Moving to Sheffield Buddhist Center, it's again, as I said, it's a grade 2 grade 2 listed building, a church which is converted into a Buddhist chapel, Buddhist center. How did that happen? How did they make sure that the iconography was changed? The key driver, need for a new building, it's listed, but because it was a listed religious place of worship building, they couldn't sell it off easily to private developers, and hence they reduced the price to 1/3, and the Buddhist Center made sure that we got the building, and that gave them impetus of doing something. But they were really scared, as they told us, because they just wanted something bigger than like the 2 rooms they had earlier. And suddenly they had this big property, and how do they go along with it? But it's transformed that well in last 10 years. And in contrast to the key asset, which I said was in St. Luke's, where there was a steering committee which had different skills. Over here, the entire committee decided that we're going to put impetus on this one person, one key contact who would lead it. Of course, there would be decision-making team, there would be committee meetings, but there would be one person chairing it and taking it forward, taking decisions. So that was something which was a learning experience for us. Okay, fine, it's supposed to be participatory, but it's also some kind of leadership qualities which has to be agreed and taken forward. How does the building work? So this complete refurbishment, removal of Christian iconography. Faith is Buddhist center mainly, but there's residence for in-house devotees. It also runs different community classes, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation classes for wider community. So it doesn't have to be only Buddhist people, but everyone can come in. An interesting part about this is that's where the church bell was. And during roof repairs, one of the church bell fell down, and they decided to replace it with the Buddha. The architects said, make sure you get the planning consent. The planners were really very helpful, and they got the consent. But when it was done, somebody from the wider community who had never visited the church got really passionate about it, and it went into BBC. And what happened was then that they had to fight for it. But what they told us, like in fact, instead, if we had gotten into the community, made sure that we worked them from the first phase, then it wouldn't have been a problem. So he just went to the lady, as in the committee leader. He just went to this community member and said, "What do you have an issue? We won't put the Buddha statue if that's a problem." And she said, "No, it's okay." So it was just a simple task of talking to the community members in the first instance. Who is the community? Over here, it was purely, they said, we are the congregation, are the community, but we want to make sure that we are inviting to everyone. St. Martin's, what was the key driver of the project? So they kept on doing a few changes here and there, but the main key driver was the discovery of the murals. These murals were painted in 60s, but painted during the just after World War, but during 60s renovation, there was a mezzanine put up there, and half of the paintings been lost. So in 2010, or just a few years before that, when there was electrical wiring done, the paintings were discovered, and then the entire process of restoring it started. But because it came across in the media, they got a lot of attention and a lot of funding from community people who said, we want to get this heritage back. So they also decided to restore the entire church, remove the modern elements from 60s and bring it back to the medieval church. The key asset here, similar to the Buddhist Center, was Hilary Wheat, the project manager as well as the church warden. She had the passion to take the entire project through the 5 years journey. How did she do it? And what kind of faith and belief she had made a major role in terms of bringing the stakeholders together, working with them in all stages, and seeing it to fruitful conclusions. But as she said, there was clear communication with all stakeholders so that everyone was involved in all stages. Nobody was felt left out, so everybody felt that it was my project. How does the building work? Back to earlier medieval footprint, faith, this growing congregation after change is some kind of success for other churches to learn from, that you can open it to the wider community but also retain your faith. Community activities, again, toddler group, percussion groups, weddings. And they were quite keen on saying our community is congregation as well as the wider community. It doesn't only it means only our faith. So these three kind of examples give us this overall conclusions, and it's not final because we're going to finish 15 cases by the end of next year. But we just want to bring in terms of the third slide, which I showed about the protection of heritage and faith, and it all lies on the cusp, but there's always tensions, and each community member and everyone will have different perceptions and to values surrounding faith, heritage, and design. Each group will resolve the tensions in their own way. There is no one solution. That's what we've seen yet. But the importance of early and constant involvement of communities is a key, because if people are involved from the first stage, which is the most difficult stage, that's when they need support and they need more involvement. So yeah, thank you for that. And that's our website, and these are our project partners. If you have any questions, please let me know. I've also got these pamphlets, so I'll be distributing them around. Thank you.